Take the exit. Turn right into the drive-thru.
Nope, I'm making dinner tonight.
You don't have time. Josh has practice.
Oh, that's right. I'll just get a salad.
And fries?
No, just the salad.
But salad cancels fries.
Salad only.
Fries.
Salad.
Fries.
Food noise isn't fair, but Mochi Health is. The affordable GLP-1 source that puts you on the road to successful weight loss.
Hey, can I get the...
Fries.
Salad. Sorry.
Learn more at joinmochi.com. Mochi members have access to licensed physicians and nutritionists. Results may vary.
Hello, welcome back to the Shifting Schools podcast. My name is Tricia Friedman, and on this week, we are speaking with Billy Ray. That's a name that you might recognize. He's best known for his work as a screenwriter. He worked on the 2013 hit Captain Phillips, and he also worked on the incredible film, I think you may have heard of it, known as The Hunger Games. Well, he's here this week to talk about Burn the Water, which is his very first novel. Our conversation is going to be full of practical advice for helping young learners, and perhaps not so young, understand what it takes to see ourselves as creative, how we can better rehearse creative thinking, and what it means to try to do something we have not done before. Stay tuned for that. Before I welcome Billy Ray onto the show, I want to let you know that you can join me this coming month, this April, for a free 45-minute Futures literacy session. The link to the show notes will be there. It's going to be April 20th, and we're going to be using Futures literacy to explore the future of fun. If you are curious about what a futures literacy approach is like, if you would like to add a few tools to your repertoire of thinking skills, consider joining me. It's free, it's 45 minutes, and the link to join is in the show notes. Now, please welcome to the show, Billy Ray. An honor to be speaking with you today, sir. I'd like to start off with a statement and just get your reaction to it. As I was reading the new book and thinking about your work as I know it from your many years as a screenwriter, I was thinking Billy Ray, at the core, writes about our human need for community. Am I wrong? Am I...
You're 100% right. And I really appreciate that insight. We're nothing without each other. And there are a million ways of expressing that and exploring that. Burn the Water is one, but I've been talking about it since I began writing.
Burn the Water has me thinking a lot about what I would describe as our current state, that we are in sort of a crisis of the imagination. We have got to start thinking more about the multiple futures that we might be headed towards. And I'm wondering if you can speak to listeners a little bit about how you have clearly nurtured your imagination. Billy Ray is not having that crisis. You are a thinker that has this expansive capacity to build worlds. How do you do that? And I realize you could probably talk about that for hours, but what has it meant for you to continue to nurture your imagination in a way that you can pivot from screenwriting to a novel?
Well, Picasso once said, good artists borrow and great artists steal. And I endeavor to be a great artist. So I had many things to steal from, not the least of which was The Hunger Games itself. What a template. Maybe the greatest idea for a story ever, certainly the darkest idea for a story ever. And watching how Suzanne built that out, and I was inside the machine while it was happening and had the privilege of working on that first one and then working on the next one. And understanding how she attacks material, how she always starts with theme and philosophy first, and then everything follows from there. But going back to the first person that I'm stealing from, which is Shakespeare, you can't beat the dramatic bones of Romeo and Juliet. I wanted to explore it and expand on it in a different way. And so I ended up setting it 400 years in the future, which allowed me to borrow from both of them.
In doing so, Shakespeare template, he's a playwright that does what you do, and it doesn't see romance as this separate entity, politics as this separate entity, but realizing part of the human experience is often we're dealing with multiple themes simultaneously. The idea for Burn the Water start in terms of knowing that you wanted to go lots of years forward. It's so interesting to say that part of the inspiration was Shakespeare, so you were thinking backwards. Why set this story so far in the future then?
Well, like everyone else who had read Romeo and Juliet, it stayed with me forever. And I was fairly deep into my career. This was 15 years ago. And I thought about, is there a new way to do Romeo and Juliet, a new exploration of that idea? And then I thought, well, what if I set it in the future? That's interesting. What would that future look like? Okay, that's interesting. What could that version of the Montagues and the Capulets, what could they be fighting over? And then I thought, okay, the one thing about Romeo and Juliet that doesn't feel modern is that Juliet doesn't really have a job. Romeo is doing all the pursuing. And I wondered, what if these two characters, Rafe and Jewel, what if they were equals? And what if they were both warriors? And what if they were on opposite sides in a Romeo and Juliet gang war? What would happen to that? And that became fuel. I thought about it for 15 years. I thought about it as a movie. I thought about it as a TV series. It always just sounded too expensive because it involved such world building, because London is so visually striking in this world. But then I thought, if you write a novel, the bigger the better. You can do all the world creating you want, and it doesn't cost anybody anything. They just have to use their imagination. And that was the setting for it. And then as I started to work on it, it oddly became my open love letter to the teens in America and in the world who feel so lost and so voiceless right now and so disenfranchised. And it was my way of saying to them, not only is this going to get better, but you're going to be the ones who lead us out of it, which I believe to my core.
That make about story as humans' original technology, so important to be leveraging it at this time, as you mentioned. I'm curious about how you mull through those dark ideas, how you keep your thumb on the pulse of what is unquestionably some very dark times, but yet you emerge with hope. What's enabled you to do that?
I can't function without hope. In the last 10, 11 years in particular, I've had some pretty low moments politically. If I believe that we're going in the wrong direction permanently, it's so upsetting that you can't actually function. And if you can't function, you can't help turn that ship around. And so I find hopelessness to be just about the most dangerous thing that there is. And I will not succumb to it for the same reasons that I don't believe in writer's block. When I hear a writer saying, I just stood at the screen, I stared at the screen all day for 6 hours and shit. No, just type words. You can make them better later. Just type, keep driving, keep pushing. And that's what the young people of today are going to have to do. Right now, in 1960, the average age of a first-time home buyer in America was 23. 23. It's now 40. You've got a group of people out there that don't know that they're going to get a job, don't know that they're going to do better than their parents, and don't know that they're ever going to move out of the house. It's tough to motivate if the future looks bleak to you. And what I want to do with Burn the Water is to say, you can't picture a bleaker world than the one I'm about to paint. And two people your age save the day and lead us out to a much better place. That's the gift I want to give.
Strikes me that in your description, wiser than me will comment on hope being a practice, hope being something that we enact. To what extent for you is writing doing that? How in effect you think, of course, it is important for us to know how to write, of exchanging knowledge, employment. But I also wonder if what you're describing there is, it's also important to know how to engage in creative writing because it's a way to process our emotions and to better understand the perspective that maybe we want to have on our current circumstances.
Sure. I'm going to quote Picasso again. He said, art is a lie that tells us the truth. That's what it's there for. It is there to ennoble us. It is there to challenge us. And it is there to help us see a better way. And that certainly was the idea behind Burn the Water, even to the extent of calling it Burn the Water, because it's about doing the impossible. And there are moments where my two leads, my young lovers, Rafe and Jewel are their names, they literally say, you can't burn the water. Like, what we're trying to do is impossible. And yet they find a way. And they actually do figure out how to burn the water, which is the end of the book and kind of the point of the story.
Doing the impossible, and then there's also doing what's close to the possible. I'm guessing that some in your screenwriting network would say, you sitting and writing your first novel is also like somewhat impossible. Anything felt really full from your existing skill set? And what were some of the things that you needed to unlearn or rethink when you were switching text types, when you were moving into this new realm of crafting a novel?
It's a completely different muscle. And I was shocked by how different the two disciplines are. When I was writing the first draft of this, I had such imposter syndrome. I kept thinking to myself, okay, Billy, you're a screenwriter, but you're not a novelist. Like Steinbeck's a novelist. Victor Hugo, that's a novelist. Nabokov, that's a novelist. So just write this as short as you possibly can. Don't bore anybody and get out before they figure out that you're a charlatan. So I literally, as I was writing the novel, I was asking people in New York, what's the minimum number of words that this can be and still technically be called a novel? They said 60,000. So I literally wrote it at 60,001 and started showing it around. And people said, look, you're writing this like a screenplay. You're writing this lean and spare and muscular, and that's great when you're writing a screenplay. That's what they're supposed to be. But when you write a novel, you're the camera. You're the actors' faces. You're the production design. You have to fill all that in. You don't have 200 other crew members who are going to paint that picture for you. And so that 60,000 words then blew up to 90,000 words. And that is actually the draft that sold to Scholastic. And then, because I couldn't live with myself, I had to cut it back down to 72. I still think it should be a little bit lean. And as it turns out, I think we found the right balance. People seem to say it's a pretty brisk read, which makes me really happy, and which I think is necessary if you're going to compete in the YA market.
No question is to really get in the weeds of your process. I always love hearing from creatives in terms of the practicalities of how they do what they do, because I think that we are still, unfortunately, learning in a place where a lot of people just think, oh, well, Billy Ray must just spark and then it all just flows out. Can you talk to us about actually how you set up the conditions, even as seemingly simple as how do you set up your desk? Or if we were to observe you doing the work of creating a world like Burn the Water, what would we see you have as some of your tools or instruments?
Okay. The first thing you would see is that I don't approach it like an artist. I approach it like a mechanic. Because if you put the pressure on yourself of, oh, I have to be a brilliant artist today, that's how writer's block happens, which I don't believe in. But if you approach it like a mechanic, you say, I'm going to get under the hood today and I'm going to make this engine run better, then you can actually just sit down at your desk at 8, which I do, and feed yourself at 1 and be back at 1:15 and go until 6. And if you are just problem solving, 95% of writing is problem solving. And if you're just focusing on that, the great screenwriter, Patty Chayefsky, who won 3 Oscars, said, if you're an artist, it'll come out as art anyway. But don't think of it as art. Just think of it as work. And in that way, you can look at yourself at the end of the day and say, I did my job today.
Readers everywhere are going to be grateful that you were under the hood of the vehicle that they are about to take on. Such an honor to speak with you today. Congratulations on making the pivot into the world of YA. Listeners, this book, you open it, you are not going to want to put it down. I think it's one of those incredible, it's going to keep you up all night and you'll be glad that you stayed up all night reading it. Congratulations, and we look forward to seeing more from the worlds that you build. Thank you, Billy Ray.
Deeply appreciate it, and the sequel is already written. Will be published this time next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to today's podcast. I'm sure you have heard by now, I wrote a new book, and I want to take a minute to tell you directly why I wrote Humans Still Required. For the past few years on this podcast, we've been wrestling with AI in real time. Not hype, not panic, just honest conversations about what it means for schools and leadership. This book is a result of that work. It's not about prompts or tools. It's about judgment. It's about trust. It's about the leadership decisions you can't outsource. As I say in the book, quote, "Control scales poorly, judgment scales well." If this podcast has supported your thinking, this book will take it deeper. Thank you for being a part of this community. And of course, you can learn more and grab your copy at shiftingschools.com.